I've had a total of about 12 years of professional experience in China. First with Eastman Kodak. I was in charge of the consumer imaging business, building up the brand, the distribution structure, the organization, the retail network in China back in 1999 to 2001. Then I came back in 2004 as the president of Goodyear Tire, in charge of turning around and then leading the growth of Goodyear in China from 2004 to 2011. I then advised some businesses in the community of Shanghai, mostly some SMEs, and I joined Triangle Tyre as its chief executive officer. Now, Triangle Tyre is not very well known, but it is today the largest private tire manufacturing business in China. This is a business which is considered to be a national champion of China, and my mission in joining Triangle Tyre was to transform this national champion into a regional player and eventually a global player. It's very significant. First, because at Goodyear and Kodak, I was working for large multinational with established processes, a very significant talent base, established businesses, and public organization. Whereas in the case of Triangle Tyre, I was working for a private business with a very strong chairman. And so you end up having to change in a significant way your leadership style. Also, the challenges being faced and the opportunities you have as a Chinese business are very different. For example, Triangle Tyre has a very strong balance sheet. We have little debt, a lot of cash, and so financial resources are never really the challenges. The challenges is much more to attract, retain, and develop talents that you need. It's also about transforming a culture that has been shaped up and has become very effective in operating in China into a culture and an organization that is able to operate outside of China. I would say there are two significant differences that comes to mind. One, the importance of the governor. We know that the government is our business partner, whether you are multinational or you're an SMEs or you are a Chinese company. The government is your partner. But what I face within Triangle is a situation where we had daily interfaces with the government. So the government was very present within the organization, and both to support us, but also to guide us. The second key difference I saw is the fact that from a talent standpoint, whenever you work for a Western company, you're able to access individual organization competencies which have been proven. Whereas in the case of Triangle, we had to build such competencies. The way a business has been operating in China for the past 20 to 30 years has been very successful, but it is very different to how you need to operate outside of China. So part of my role was to educate the chairman and the leadership team and to put in place the processes and the methodology such that the company could successfully operate outside of China. I think that you can look at it from two ways. On one side, there is certainly government support and government guidance being given to the organization. On the other side, it is a source of pride. I think that many of Triangle employees felt very proud to be associated with an organization who had been very successful on its own right and eventually had been recognized by the government as a national champion. So national champion is more of a status. Think about it of a state of a business. It's not something that you can win. It's not something that gives you special privilege. It's more the fact that your success is such that when the government think about economic policy, industrial policy, R&D policies, they will turn toward Chinese businesses who have become successful and they will leverage them. I think that there are three fundamental challenges that most private businesses are facing. Number one, they need to go international. And those businesses know how to operate in China, but they need to learn how to operate outside of China. Second, in order to operate in China and outside of China, they need to attract talent, both national talent and international talent. And it is not easy today to attract talent within a privately owned Chinese company, especially when this business is not located in a big city. So that would be the second major challenge. Number three, and maybe most importantly, most Chinese businesses are currently facing a succession process. Chinese businesses on the private side were created between 1975, 1985. The chairman, the leadership team are all getting in their 60s, and it is time to have a succession. And in many organizations, there is no clear successor. You do not have a child, you do not have a nephew, and as such, a certain numbers of private businesses today have an aging leadership team and no clear succession. As you know, there is no professional executive in China. It's not that you can go out and recruit in the marketplace a professional executive. And in many instances, the chairman has not necessarily developed and groomed a successor. So over the next 10 years, we're going to face a situation in which very successful company, very good company, may face significant challenges because the succession process has not been put in place. For Western businesses, it means the following. From a business continuity standpoint, Western businesses should audit their key customers and key suppliers and make sure that those businesses have a succession process in place so that there is no disruption in their business over the next 10 years. It also means that from a partnership standpoint, alliance standpoint, acquisition standpoint, private businesses that today are very successful and should not be looking for a partner or should not be looking to sell themselves may have no choice because no successor may be hired, and as such, the chairman and the leadership team may have no choice but to look for selling the business. Why? Because the IPO market is very limited. There are only a few hundred companies every year that can go through an IPO. So thousands of companies are facing a succession question, and as such, they will be looking for a way of monetizing their wealth, and a way of monetizing the wealth is to sell the business. If you cannot do it with an IPO, you need to find either a financial partner, or, which means still have to find a successor, or you need to find a strategic partner. And this is where Western businesses may have opportunities in building up alliances, partnership, JV, and eventually acquisition of successful Chinese business as they go through a succession process. Well, I think that this is going to accelerate. Everything is pointing towards a significant expansion of acquisition of foreign businesses by Chinese businesses for many reasons. First of all, because consumers outside of China want Chinese product. So there is demand for Chinese product. Number two, Chinese companies are looking for technology. They're looking for market access. They're looking for distribution. They're looking for talent. They're looking for brand. One way you can get all of that is to buy a foreign business. Number three, they typically have very strong balance sheet, little debt, strong cash flow, so they have the financial resources to go out and buy businesses. And finally, all the barriers that some countries have been building up via anti-dumping duties or non-tariff barriers to block or to reduce or to make more difficult to import made in China products is resulting into Chinese companies having to build manufacturing base outside of China. So the unintended consequences of anti-dumping duties in the United States, for example, is to have so many Chinese companies building up factories in the USA. Now, it's good for the USA. It means jobs, wealth, investment in the USA, but it also means that it is accelerating the globalization of Chinese companies. Finally, often a business go international when its customer base goes international. So you follow your customer. And what's also happening in China is some big Chinese companies are going international, and as such, they bring with them their suppliers. So all these factors for me will result into having an acceleration of the globalization of Chinese business, meaning more and more acquisition. And I think this is good news for the United States. I would anticipate to have a significant wave of Chinese investment in the USA with all the benefit that it will create in the communities in the United States where those Chinese business invest.